new in a sense, but it came out today because the Superintendent Registrar for the Health Service Executive in the Easter Region, Dennis Pryor, has spoken out to the Irish Times, and he said that sham marriages aimed purely at circumventing immigration rules are happening all over the place. In fact, he reckoned that nearly a fifth of all the marriages in this country are sham marriages. In other words, non-EU nationals are marrying EU nationals for the purpose of getting a residency in the European Union. I'm joined by Derek Stewart, immigration lawyer, and Ted Neville, immigration control platform. Are you surprised by this, Ted Neville?
Not really, Tom. I think, as you state, it's an anecdote that has been well known amongst the public for quite some time. And, you know, we have a history in this country due to our very lax and largely undiscussed issue of free immigration that people will resort to many means of getting into the country to stay here. And this is one that apparently is being resorted to by, amongst others, students whose courses have completed and their visas have expired, failed asylum seekers who refuse to take no for an answer, and a way out for them to get residency in Ireland and in Europe under current EU statute and law is that if they marry a person of EU citizenship, they have the right of residency in the country. And these are clearly being resorted to as a means, an artificial means of getting residency in the state. And it appears, and it's utterly bizarre, that registrars, and we owe great credit to Mr. Pryor for coming clear with this information, they appear contractually to be obliged to carry out these marriages even though they know they're sham. And they have no powers, and the state and the government who run this country, or allegedly run this country, have given them no powers to deal with the issue.
Well, now, the figures are pretty undeniable. In 2005, there were 13 applications for residencies based on marriage to EU citizens. Last year, 2,129.
Yeah. Well, like everything else, it starts small, and the whole immigration phenomenon into Ireland started small, and then it took foot in 1998 after the Anglo-Irish Agreement, when anybody born here could become an Irish citizen overnight. And all these things are the inevitable result of woolly thinking in government and a lack of conviction and a lack of interest in debating and dealing with.
Well, to be fair to the government, they went to the European Union about it and they were ruled down.
True, and I suppose it just highlights the fact really that our government is in Brussels, and we are left now with whatever we can do as a small province of the European superstate in trying to deal with this problem. And because there's such a plethora of European enforcements and legislation and so forth on it, it's very, very hard for government. But now, government hasn't really tackled any of these issues from the off.
Derek Stewart, you're an immigration lawyer. You deal, I think, most of the time, all the time with this. What is your reaction to these figures in this story?
Well, the figures, we're looking at civil marriages, leaving aside the marriages that were conducted in the churches and mosques and synagogues around the country, which far exceeded the civil ones. And we're looking at what's, according to the article in the Irish Times today, around 600 marriages. And there's no real figures as to how many of that 600 might be sham marriages. What I have to look at, on the other hand, is the genuine marriages between, say, someone from Mauritius and someone from Latvia, and they find they're being denied the right to work, and they may have met in some other country.
Well, what we're talking about are bogus marriages, not correct marriages.
But what the fear here is that if it's sensationalised to the extent that
we're not sensationalising. I beg your pardon, sir. We are having a proper discussion about this.
If the impression is given that all marriages between European Union nationals...
No, I didn't say that. I said the registrar thought about a fifth of the marriages.
Well, then only a fifth. Well,
okay, and he would possibly know better than any of us, don't you think?
I've had dealings with registrars. He would, in some cases, they would know better than any of us. Yeah. And in some cases, in certain cases, registrars have been known to call the local immigration officers. If it's a registrar in a part of the country where neither the immigration officer nor the registrar is overworked, they might have the facility and the luxury and the ability to be able to do that.
Isn't that a constitutional duty, since the Constitution...
Not a constitutional duty,
Well,
no.
The Constitution defends the institution of marriage.
Well, the last Minister for Justice was able to change the Constitution quite easily. So I'm not saying... What I'm looking at the moment is if a registrar has a genuine, seriously well-founded concern that a couple in front of him are not a bona fide couple, he is entitled to and able to call an immigration officer and say, I need some help here.
But they're not breaking the law.
How do you mean they're not breaking the law? If they marry,
Yeah.
not as the law stands at the moment.
That's right. So they're not breaking the law.
They're not breaking the law.
So he calls the authorities. What happens?
They can. In the cases,
Nothing.
in my experience. Oh no. Far from it. In some cases, the Gardaí will come round,
Yeah.
an immigration officer, interview a couple.
Yeah.
They'll form an opinion as to whether they think that it's a false counterfeit.
Yeah, but it's not illegal.
And well, put it
Is
like
it
this.
legal or is it illegal? You're a
It's
lawyer.
not illegal. It's not a criminal law as it stands. No.
So it's not illegal.
It's not illegal. No.
Okay. So what's the point of calling the guards then?
Because if the registrar forms the impression that this is a sham marriage,
Yeah.
he can very well refuse it.
Yeah, absolutely. But they're
Yeah.
not doing anything illegal. He can just say, no, get out of here.
Yeah.
And also, if they accept money, if an Irish citizen is offered money to marry somebody from non-EU, they're not acting illegally, are they? Do you think the law should be changed?
The situation with Irish citizens and EU citizens is very different. Because in an Irish citizen, you will find very few, if any, people marrying Irish
Do you think
citizens.
the law needs to be changed?
Well, there is a Supreme Court case in relation to the law as regards the rights of people who marry Irish citizens, and going back to 2006.
But in relation to
well,
sham marriages, should the law be changed?
Well, in relation, if there's an abuse, which there clearly is to a certain extent, there's no reason why the law shouldn't be changed.
Well, what do you think then, Ted?
Well, it is a minefield, and I think we appear to have just one option left on this issue alone, and this is a very narrow issue. It's only the tip of the iceberg on the whole immigration scene. But the only legislation that we can possibly enforce at this point in time, and it has been hinted to by the European Union, is that we still have the right to formulate marriage law in this country, and particularly because of the constitutional position of marriage and its safeguarding, we should be able to do that.
But can I put this to you? What is wrong with these people trying to come in here? They're just trying to advance their lives, get a better standard of living.
Obviously, yeah. And the whole third world would really like to advance their standard of living, and Ireland is the destination of choice. And I mean, we have to come to some realistic understanding that we are not going to be an overseas colony for the Indian subcontinent, for West Africa, for China. And that is really what we are becoming.
But what is most extraordinary about you saying that is not a single political person in this country will say that.
Absolutely.
Not a single member of any political party will say that.
But surely that's...
we don't have politics
the Immigrant Control Platform has been saying this for 16 years. When I first was on the Late Late Show with Anya Connell, she didn't want English or German people in Cork. So really, I think this is moving from a discussion on marriage to a whole issue on immigration. The Immigration Resident Protection Bill has a section to dealing with marriage. It's before the Dáil at the moment. The Minister's original idea was it needed his consent. That'll be modified down. But to say that we're an open house for immigration all over the world is just absurd.
Well, it's absolutely true. I mean, people are still coming into this country. But the point is that even though numbers of immigration applicants go down, and it's regularly trumpeted by people in the immigration industry, nobody actually leaves. Nobody goes. The numbers come down, but they're piling up all the time. The people are still here. They've come across the globe to Mosney, but they won't go from Mosney down to Dublin.
Do you call thousands of people going back to the new accession EE countries not leaving the country, 40 or 50,000 a month?
Well,
you don't call that leaving the country?
Yeah, but they're not non-EU nationals, Derek.
But the number of EU nationals compared to the non-EU nationals, the EU nationals in the last 5 years have made up the vast proportion of the immigrant population in this country.
No, but they're not immigrants. EU nationals are not immigrants. They live in the EU.
Yeah, but they've moved from one EU country to another. They've immigrated into Ireland. They're not Irish nationals.
In a strict sense, then it's not immigration.
Other EU countries kept them out of the country.
If I go to work in Paris, I'm not an immigrant.
You are.
Well, not really.
You're an EU national exercise. But no, the point is, if you look at the 450,000 people who came into Ireland the last 10 years, no more than maybe 35 or 40,000 were asylum seekers.
Well, if I could just come in there maybe on one point. That volume of people did come into this country, even though Brian Cowan told us there was only going to be 20,000 from the accession countries and from Feachtas Russa. And I mean, those people who came in, a lot of them are still working here. We have 350,000 people unemployed in this country, and we also support 80,000 foreigners on the dole in this country. And again, we just have to come to a position. Our first duty as a state is to provide a livelihood for our own people.
All right, well, thank you very much. Derek Stewart, immigration lawyer, and Ted Neville, Immigration Control Platform. One text already, you should know by now, Tom, the PC Brigade will always make excuses for the minorities. 53544. Let's hear from you. Crosby, Stills and Nash.